Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Bestechman, or Bestechman Dundee. Who the heck is that? So Bestech has their premium line. I'm sure that many of you are familiar with Bestech. If you're not, they are a Chinese company who produces premium folding knives with very, very nice quality. They're also an OEM for many designers out there in today's knife world. They also offer knives in the budget territory, right? I mean, in the past, they've offered knives around the $40 to $80 mark. They've got some in-between stuff. They are going the same route as a lot of other companies who have like a high tier, a mid tier, and a low tier, right? So like kind of how they have WE knives, they have Cibibi knives, and then they have Sencut knives. Bestechman is kind of like Bestech's Sencut. So offering, high quality for this territory of the knife world. And I'm happy to say that this is largely that. It is available right now. I'll make sure that it's linked right down below so that you guys can check it out if you want to. It does help my channel when you use my links, but that's entirely up to you. Thanks to Bestech, or Bestechman, I imagine the same company, for sending this in for me to take a look at. Thanks so much to my patrons for supporting me, and please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Let's go ahead and get a measurement of this knife. This is what I would consider to be a full-size knife, coming in at 8 inches with a blade length of 3.5 and a cutting edge of about 3.35. How about some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and the Ontario Rat Model 2? You can see this is about in between. Let's go ahead and put it up against the Demco AD 20.5. There we go. How about up against the Benchmade Bugouts? And we'll go ahead and do the Para 3 as well. All right, how's the action on this guy? Pretty good. Actually, it's exactly what you'd expect. Easy disengagement on that countersunk liner lock. That's a nice touch for the price, getting a countersunk, not lipped liner lock, but a countersunk liner lock. Easy disengagement, nice flipping action, nice detent, and almost fall shut. I'm sure it'll get there over time. Really, it feels good. I mean, it's no surprise. Bestech has always been able to tune these flipper knives properly, so there you go. Can you access that thing, that fuller? Not really. Had they cut this area a little lower, you might have been able to, but it works fine the way that it's intended to be deployed. Carry profile, thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. It's actually not all that thick. It's a little bit thinner. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. This is really not going to be a cumbersome object to carry. It is maybe just a little bit longer than the Para 3, nowhere near as long as the PM2. Height-wise, way shorter. Pretty compact. For materials, we are looking at G10. This does come in a few different colors of G10, so if you're not the biggest fan of green, I've seen black and I think a few other colors, so you might just check the link out to see what's available. We do have steel on both sides, so you can see there, it is countersunk or nested into the G10 on both sides. And then for the blade steel, we have D2, which is perfectly acceptable at this price point. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. Weight on the Dundee coming in at 3.21 ounces, which is very good in the ratios department. At 3.5 inches of blade, it is better than a 1-to-1 ratio there, so very nice. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'll get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. We have a T8 pivot, and then we have these screws are actually hidden underneath the nested liner. So that's kind of neat. They're still there. You just can't see them. You will need to take these screws out, the pocket clip, sort of the filler screws, because they are attached to the liner. Same thing with the pocket clip over here. Did I say that correctly? Yeah. Those are T6. I would imagine these are T6 under here. So that's fine. Not my favorite. I wish it was T8, but can't always get what you want. As long as you have a quality tools and a place to put your hardware, you should be good to go. Let's go ahead and measure blade stock thickness here. Not a thick blade. We're coming in at about 125 thousandths, which is the same as about the, like the Ritter Hogue. Not quite as thin as the bug out, but on the thinner side. If we're saying 135 thousandths is about middle of the road. have we done everything? Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about this knife. So this is a nice, it's like I'm used to, when I think of like a $40 knife, I think of the Rat 1 and the Rat 2, which are still good knives, right? They're made in Taiwan, but they're not quite as streamlined, right? They're a little bit more clunky, a little bit, they're fine, they work. But if you're looking for something a little bit more stylish, this has definitely got that. Ergonomically, it's pretty good. The bill of the clip is very shallow, which for the design of this is just excellent. It's, the lines here are not necessarily like, oh my God, hand melting, but they work. It's pretty good. I'd give it a B+, comfortable to hang on to for, realistically what you're going to use it for. This is peel ply textured, so a little bit of grip here. I do like the pivot. It reminds me of Dylan Mallory's logo. It's very similar, right? Kind of a sinister McDonald's logo, but okay. Is it a B? Is it an... Yeah, it must be a B. Okay. Well, his is an M, so maybe they just want you to turn it sideways. Let's see here. It says Bestechman and has a totally different logo right there. It's such a funny name. Bestechman. Not sure how they want us to pronounce it. Over here we have Ostap Hell design, and it says D2, which is fine. There's a nice fuller here. Honestly, the blade looks really nice. Nothing that we haven't seen before, but a really nice satin finish on this. Nice fuller with a little bit of a tumbled finish on the inside. We have a swedge up here. Comes down to a very fine tip, and the edge itself does come down to a fairly thin edge. This will be fine for cutting and slicing, general everyday carry tasks that you would, expect a pocket knife to be able to handle. This is going to do that, right? This is not what I'd consider to be a hard use knife. I think that's obvious. Don't baton with it. Don't screw with it. Don't hammer with it, right? Cut things, poke things. That's what knives are supposed to do. And it'll do that very well. There's jimping that extends out to a nice spot. Appreciate that, right? It's nice to be able to get your thumb up there and still have that grip. Doesn't make me feel like I'm going to drop this knife, right? No matter how I hold it, it just feels good. I do appreciate how clicky the detent is. There's a nice satisfying breakaway when you flip it, and all of the power I put into my finger is transitioned into the blade, and that's what we want, right? You don't want to feel like you're missing out on something. The blade absolutely rockets into the open position reliably, and it's not one of those knives I think will misfire. I think no matter how light, yeah, it's going to fire no matter what. So that's great. Let's see here. Nice bevels right here. Edges are nicely knocked down as well. These are not textured on the side. They're just flat, smooth G10. This area here, they didn't opt for a filler tab, which is a nice way to keep your eyes off of that zone. They just put screws in there. And the reason that I prefer, it's like, why didn't they just leave it flat? Well, it's nice when you have a clip like this to have the back of it recessed into the G10, right? So that it doesn't wiggle. They also recessed the screws. Hallelujah. It's amazing that so many companies get that wrong. Recess the clip and the screws. It's a lot of times they're like, oh, let's recess the screws and leave the clip on top of the G10, or let's put the clip into the G10 and then let's do domed screws. Do them both, right? This does that, and I appreciate that. I also really, also obviously you can mount it for left-handed carry, and lefties, manipulating a right-handed liner lock, pretty simple, right? It's not as convenient, I'm sure, than it being a left-handed liner lock, but it's plenty good. This pocket clip is wonderful. It carries it, at a depth that I would, it's about medium, which is fine. There's just a little bit of knife sticking up out of your pocket, as long as it's not shallow. I hate shallow carry, but that's just my preference. But screws, the recessed part of the clip and the screws, that's great. It's got a nice taper, fairly shallow, and then there's just a little bit of a bill at the end, right? It honestly could have been a little bit more and it would have been fine, but this is honestly really easy to get in and out of the pocket with it being a stamped steel clip. I think a lot of people are confused why I complain about, goose bills and dragon-faced clips, especially when they are steel. They're just asking to grab onto something. When you walk by something and the clip of your knife catches it, especially if it's steel, it just bends out and you're like, oh, right? Steel is nowhere near as forgiving as titanium, so it's especially bad when that happens. So The more shallow the bill on clips like this, the better. And this is done very, very well. It's also not a clip that looks weird or offensive on the design, and it's also not overly long. It's really great and doesn't create a hotspot. I really like that. Again, big fan of the nested steel liner lock. That looks really good and helps keep the weight and the thickness of everything down. They took advantage of that, and that's really, really nice. Runs on bearings, I think that's obvious. It also has a stop pin that is attached to the blade and runs on channels either side of the knife. On the inside, the liner's right there, so that's nice. You get an additional point of contact versus a traditional stop pin where it's just the tang of the blade contacting one pin. You got the pin contacting the steel on either side plus the liner lock. So that's nice. Good stability and lockout while still maintaining a smooth action. Really nice. Lockup is probably coming in at about 30 to 35%. There is no blade play up, down, left, or right. No lock stick. No pivot lash. Consistent action and real nice. How about centering? Dead perfect. Nice standoffs there too. They give you just about everything that you would want in a budget knife, right? These little extra things they don't have to do, like recessing the clip and the screws, recessing the liner, right? Giving you a nice fuller in the blade, giving you some nice detail like with the pivot, right? And then you get stuff that you expect, like steel liners, G10 and D2. This is the difference between judging just the materials and the execution of those materials, right? These are nice details. I also like that we get a nice polished clip and a good clip design, right? If they offer this exact same clip on every single knife that they make, fine. I think on some designs it's going to look a little weird, but fine, it's a good clip. If they don't, it tells me that they are designing clips that are specific to the designs. I don't know because this is the only Bestechman knife that I have seen. What does this come in at? About $44. Yeah, that's, there are still companies that are making knives with these materials that are, let's be real, they're a little more blocky, right? For a little bit less. But a lot of those companies are operating on massive volume at this point, and they have lots and lots and lots of stuff that they're selling, right? But Bestechman is fairly new. Truthfully, and we also have to consider, like, things have inflated massively since pre-2019. So all of that considered, I think this is great. I don't really have a problem with this. This knife in particular, I mean, I can't judge the entire... This feels just as nice as any other Bestech I've ever handled. It's just a little less expensive, right? You still get some of those nice details. It'll be interesting to see what they come out with in the future. This is very competitive. It's not like the most, oh my gosh, this is the greatest budget knife I've ever handled. There's no reason to consider anything else. No, it's just good. It's a good offering. If you're looking at it and you're like, I like how it looks, it's got nice quality and it's not going to break the bank. This is absolutely a recommendable knife, and it's also a cheap knife that I like, so it's going to go on both playlists. But yeah, generally speaking, this is pretty much recommendable for anybody looking for a good knife, right? If you're looking for your first nice pocket knife, this is a good place to start, right? You got a lot of options. I'm not saying that there aren't. There are tons of options out there, very competitive options, but this is good. It's nice to see them starting off with a good design. So that's about it. Sorry, the knife was not centered while I was talking. This was, I knew this wasn't going to be a super long review, so yeah. Knife will be linked down in the description if you guys want to check it out. Thanks again to Bestech for sending this in for review. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.